Um, I normally don't stream a day after the watch alongs, but at the very least, today is a bit different. Um, the UFC pay per view, or rather, the UFC fight night ended a little bit earlier, so I got the opportunity to sleep. A lot of the things that I normally do, I'm almost done with them, except cooking, I think, yeah. But I'm almost done with that as well. So I was like, you know what? Let's have a conversation about John Jones retiring. Um, One of my subscribers actually called this. Shawshot McGee was like, "Nah, John Jones is not gonna fight Tom Aspinall." And honestly, in all honesty, I didn't think HD comes HD comes. You always ask me if I'm stoned, man. I'm not stoned. This is how my eyes are. Renee Lord, did you see that dude in your comments? Check the community section. I made a post about it. I'm not sure which dude you're talking about. Is it the dude who is trashing the prediction for the like best MMA gyms and stuff like that? I'll check the community section. That guy is insane, man. Like I'm like anyone anyone who calls my subscribers casuals is insane in my opinion because the people who follow me are following a statistics channel. Statistics are not very entertaining, to be honest. So anyone who follows my channel can honestly not be a casual. Like it's impossible, in my opinion. I don't think it's possible for anyone who follows me to be a casual because how can you be a casual when you're following a statistics channel? It doesn't really make any type of sense. Um, I'm not sure if that's what you're talking about, but there's this dude who's busy arguing with me about my subscribers being casuals, and I'm like, dude, if I was doing entertainment and I was doing commentary, like for example, what MMA Guru is doing, or what MMA Joe is doing, or Mujahid Fudailad, then that's entertainment. Then obviously it attracts a lot more casuals. But my channel, I feel like it attracts hardcore MMA fans, and that's why like there's so many debates that happen in the comment section. But I'm getting off topic. It becomes they might be selling the fight, faking his retirement. Nah, I think John Jones initially, in all honesty, Dante Maddox, Mujahid. Yeah, I mean Mujahid makes entertainment, right? Mujahid makes entertainment content, MMA content. So it attracts a lot more casual fans. Like there's nothing critical about what Mujahid does. He does comedy basically, MMA comedy. That's what he does. So my channel does not do like there's an obviously there's a bit of entertainment in the best comments of the week, but that's basically it. I think my channel has more hardcore MMA fans than most other channels. Purely because I do statistics. If you're a casual, I think statistics are going to bore you. Anyway, so in all honesty, I generally believe that John Jones actually retired. Um, I think initially he was going to fight, but I felt like he feels disrespected. And on top of that, as time progressed, I think he was like, dude, the amount of disrespect that I'm getting, let's say hypothetically speaking, I fight this guy and I win. Um, what do I get in return? Because that's how John Jones thinks. Because if you listen to his recent interviews after announcing the retirement, he was like, at this point, he doesn't really care about the belt. He wants super fight. So I don't think it's him actually retiring. I think I think he's basically telling the UFC that he wants to fight specific people. So at this particular point in time, I think he's trying to push for the Francis Ngannou fight. Right, especially after hearing that Francis Ngannou is interested in coming back to the UFC. And even though Dana White said, I know that Dana White said he's not a fan of Francis Ngannou and he feels like Francis Ngannou says things in public that he doesn't mean in private. So Malik Adebayo, who the fuck wants Francis Ngannou? I mean, everyone, my guy. Don't lie, dude. Like if Dana White came to the press conference and said John Jones is out, Francis Ngannou is in, the fight for the undisputed heavyweight championship is Francis Ngannou versus Tom Aspinall, everyone would have lost their mind. He's only good for casuals. No, even for hardcores. Like Francis Ngannou at this point is the lineal MMA champion, dude. Like, let's not even play about that. He's the lineal MMA champion because he left the UFC, like he left the UFC as the champion, and now as the current PFL champion. If someone beats Francis Ngannou in PFL, that will be the lineal champion, right? Because now it's no longer just about the UFC. He has competed in he's now a champion even in a different promotion. So currently, Francis Ngannou is the lineal heavyweight champion, in the lineal MMA heavyweight champion. Let's not even play about that. So it would be massive. Malik Adebayo, he's just a big, meaty, muscle black man, overrated. Yeah, he might be overrated, but he knocked out some of the best fighters. It's cool if you feel that way, but he knocked out Stipe. He knocked out so many talented fighters. So I mean, you're open to feeling how you feel. It doesn't change the fact that he is the current lineal heavyweight champion, MMA heavyweight champion, not just UFC, MMA heavyweight champion. Right, both in any promotion, up until someone beats Francis Ngannou, that person is going to be the lineal champion, and it's no wonder John Jones is busy chasing that fight, because ultimately I know that what John Jones is looking at is that if for example he beats Tom Aspinall, I mean for him legacy wise, and I'm not even defending what John Jones, I still felt like it was like a chicken move, for him to actually retire without fighting the interim champion, and I could have respected his decision immediately after what do you call him, immediately after fighting Stipe Miocic. I would have respected him a little bit more if he was like, you know what, I'm not interested in fighting Tom Aspinall. Here's your belt. So it shows that he was, in fact, considering fighting Tom Aspinall. But I felt like the disrespect for him got too much. I think he was expecting a little bit more of a humble approach. Like, man, I would love to fight John Jones. And even the fans, like, he wanted to be begged as opposed to being um, commanded. And I think even the petition frustrated him. It was a variety of things that led to him basically saying, you know what, F this, I'm bouncing. Right? But I don't think John Jones is actually retired, because if you listen to what he's been saying, and I think even in his statement, he said he'll come back if something interests him. So, in my opinion, these are the scenarios that I think John Jones is going to come back. Number one, if if somehow Tom Aspinall goes on to defend that belt maybe 3 times or 4 times, I think at that point he will effectively have defended the belt. I mean, what's the record for heavyweight? Isn't it three or 4 times, right? If Tom Aspinall somehow manages to surpass Stipe Miocic as far as title defenses, I think that will be enough to entice John Jones to coming back, because the thing that John Jones doesn't want is to take a risk and potentially lose to someone who might eventually lose to the next person. That's how I feel. That's how I see it, right? Kyle Voss, Jones doesn't have one real heavyweight fight. I generally do. I mean, I think if, despite how we might feel about Serogan, I think Sorogan is probably a decent heavyweight. Unfortunately, I wish he had better takedown defense, but we saw a bit of a difference performance against Sergey. Is it who's this guy? Like the guy that he fought after losing to John Jones. I mean, his takedown defense looked a bit improved in that particular fight. But nonetheless, I think Cyril Gahn is pretty decent as far as a heavyweight win. And in all honesty, even though we might say whatever we want to say about the heavyweight division, it doesn't have a lot of skill. But in the top five, the heavyweight division has pretty decent. Even though Curtis Blades did not do a great service to the UFC heavyweight division, specifically the top five, because having such a competitive fight and um, potentially losing to what do you call him? Not even potentially, arguably losing to Kuniev is a bad look for UFC heavyweight, especially in the top five, right? It's not a good look, but nonetheless, um, I genuinely feel like the top five of the heavyweight division has a bit of skill. You know, when you look at who's in the top five, people like Cyril Gahn. Who else is in the top five? There aren't that many people that I can remember. Is Jelton Almeida in the top five? I don't think so. Who's actually in the top five? Oh my goodness. Actually checking is gonna take a lot of time. But nonetheless, there is a lot. John Jones is poop. John Jones is a dog. I mean, I'm not gonna dispute with that. But in all honesty, I feel like John Jones held up a whole division for a year. Yeah, but in that period, I genuinely felt like he was considering it. But at the same time, I it could be that the UFC was just using that fight to secure a deal, right? Who knows? It's highly possible that the UFC was just using the fight with John Jones as a negotiating chip. Initially, I was denying that. I was like, it would be stupid for them to say that, because then what are they going to tell Netflix? Where if, for example, they agree with Netflix that, yay, we have this particular fight on the table, but maybe it wasn't an integral part. It wasn't an integral part of the negotiation. It's possible, but another thing is, I don't think Francis Ngannou is completely off the table, because Dana White didn't say no to getting Francis Ngannou back into the UFC. He just said he's not a fan of Francis Ngannou, and he would be surprised if Francis Ngannou actually came back, because the reasoning behind that was Dana White said that he feels like Francis Ngannou doesn't say what he says in public, in private. So basically, his argument that is that maybe if we approach him, he's probably going to say something different than what he's telling people, right? But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. I could honestly see Francis Ngannou coming back into the UFC, especially on the debut of whatever deal that they have secured. I'm genuinely hoping that it's Netflix. I'm honestly tired of ESPN and all these things. Um, let me reply to your comments. June doesn't. Okay. Gunn is a mid carder. Damn. Okay. Jones is a dog. um, Gabi C. Jones, it took 3 years for heavyweight. Then he fights Old Stipe and Gunn. I mean, that's not a good look. I will agree to that. Tepo Khabib is officially confirmed to go. I think he's in that discussion, but I mean, I don't know. People like GSP, Anderson Silva, I mean, have a solid argument to that particular position. But I hear you. Um, and I'm a Habib fan, by the way. Millennial Chris TV. It wasn't necessary for Johnny Bones to fight Aspinall. He always wanted to retire undefeated. He has secured his legacy. I honestly agree. I just feel like how he went about it is probably what affected everything. The mere fact that he held up the division for such a long period of time and it didn't even immediately retire. I think that's what people are most mad about. And not just the Stipe fight. Like after fighting Cyril Gahn, I think he should have just retired. Right? After fighting Cyril Gahn, he should have just retired. But Tom Aspinall in that period became an interim champion when John Jones got injured, and I think at that moment, John Jones should have been like, "It's now going to be an interim belt. I'm giving the belt up. I'll fight Steve on my own time, right?" But he wanted to have a title defense, so he forced. I think that's where he went wrong. Like the fact that after he got injured, Tom Aspinall fought for the interim championship, it implied that he's going to eventually fight the undisputed champion. And I think that's when he honestly messed up. He should have just relinquished his championship immediately when Francis, what do you call him, Tom Aspinall was fighting Stipe Miocic. But I guess he selfishly wanted to have a defense in the heavyweight division, and I think in some way it backfired. I still feel like John Jones and what he's achieved is puts him at the top of the sport in my opinion. I know that there are steroids and everything like that, but I mean there are so many people who have done those things. But let me not even defend it. Apart from all those things, all I can say is John Jones and what he has achieved puts him at the top of the sport. But I think this might have impacted how people will see him in the future, right? He didn't have to fight Tom Aspinall, and I think what will make it worse is if somehow Tom Aspinall goes on to become the greatest heavyweight of all time, right? I think that's going to if at this point John Jones's legacy is not ruined, but if somehow Tom Aspinall goes on to become the best heavyweight in history, I think that's going to be the narrative. Anytime you say John Jones is the GOAT, Tom Aspinall's name will forever be brought up. And at that point, you won't be able to say, nah, Tom Aspinall is nobody. I mean, if Tom Aspinall is the greatest heavyweight of all time, then you can't dismiss him anymore, right? Because like now, if in history people are looking at John Jones's resume and they're like, man, this guy did so much, but the argument will be, well, he avoided the greatest heavyweight of all time, right? So I think that's going to affect his legacy only if what do you call him, Tom Aspinall goes on to actually do extraordinary things in the division, man. So I guess I guess we'll see. Gabi GC, he secured his dark status. um, my favorite fighter right now is Tuporia. I don't know. Mine is Hamza Chimaev, to be honest. Tabo Tuporia ruined the featherweight and lightweight division. I mean, no, I feel like Tuporia needs, for me, he needs to fight Jin Silva. He needs to fight Movza Evloev for me to consider him great. At this point, I know that he beat some of actually, two of the three goats of featherweight, right? And I'll give him respect for that. But I feel like beating the goats is not enough. You have to also take out up and coming talent, right? If beating goats is the only thing that's required, I mean Colby Covington, even though Colby Covington beat those people while they're older, I mean Colby Covington then is also like the greatest fighter of all time because he has been fighting older, or rather he's beaten a couple of um great fighters, right? Even though he beat them when they were old, but still he has them on his resume. For me personally, beating legends is important to establish you and build your name. But at the same time, you need to take out the up and coming talent, right? Which is why I respect what Bilal Muhammad was doing, and which is why I respect Dricus Duplessis. Dricus Duplessis is not just saying, I'm going to fight um, Robert Whittaker and then fight Israel Adesanya and then I'm going to relinquish my belt and go to light heavyweight. Nah, that wouldn't make him great in my opinion. Like if Dricus Duplessis came into the division and only beat Israel Adesanya and Robert Whittaker, I mean that means very little to me. And then he says I'm moving up. That's not great in my opinion, right? And keep in mind that Dricus Duplessis finished both Robert Whittaker and Israel Adesanya. So, in all honesty, like for me, Dricus Duplessis and Ilya Tuporia are on the same ground. The difference, the reason I have more respect for Dricus Duplessis is not because he's like from South Africa, and I'm from South Africa. No, that's not basically it. What I respect more about Dricus Duplessis is because he's trying to fight the best athletes in the division. Ile Tuporia didn't do that, right? He beat the two goats and then left. That's not impressive in my opinion. On his way up, he beat Bryce Mitchell and Josh Emmett. I mean, are those good wins? I don't think those are good wins. Like if he had beaten maybe Arnold Allen, if he had beaten someone who's a little bit more credible, I would have a little bit more respect. Josh Emmett for me is not like. uh, I mean, even Bryce Mitchell. Look at where Bryce Mitchell is right now. So, and he even took Josh Emmett to a decision. So, I know that there are a lot of people who love Ilya Tuporia, and even though I'm picking him, I feel like at lightweight specifically, he's gonna be checked at some point. If he stays long enough, he's young, and it seems like he's going to try and get key wins. It seems like he's going to try and beat Charles Oliveira. After that, he's going to try and chase Islam Makhachev. And if he somehow beats Islam Makhachev, he's going to retire. I don't think that's a great career in my opinion. He was just chasing stardom, right? Get knock out the most popular people that you can find, become famous, and then retire. I mean, for me, to me, that's how it looks like because I respect more what Dricus Duplessis is doing, trying to fight Hamza Chimaev, trying to like the most dangerous contender in your division. Ilya Tuporia didn't do that, but let me stop rambling about Ilya Tuporia. Um, Gabi GC Tuporia first round TKO Charles. Mark my words, it's possible. But I think a lot of people are underestimating what Charles Oliveira can do. I wouldn't be surprised if an upset comes. Millennial Crisis TV. El Matador will get smoked. Oliveira isn't to be underestimated. I agree. I don't think Charles Oliveira will beat him, but I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if he does. Gabby GC gets smoked where did you think Kunyev beat the Blades yesterday? I don't know, man. I don't know. It was a hard. I can't remember now. I would have to rewatch the fight. Gabi GC, what area of fighting is Charles better in? I don't know. I feel like he's very well rounded. I can see Charles Oliveira actually giving him problems on the feet, especially because Charles Oliveira has the reach advantage. I think Charles Oliveira has decent striking. He can mix in the jiu-jitsu, and his wrestling has been improving. We saw it in the Michael Chandler fight. Have you seen Michael Chandler wrestling with Kamaru Usman? And Kamaru Usman is a really, really good wrestler. So if he was able to avoid getting out wrestled by Michael Chandler, I think that's kind of impressive. So I think Charles Oliveira's wrestling has been improving. Right? I guess we'll see as time comes. Alpha Tibbs, a lot of juicing, a lot of juicing. Alpha Tibbs, that's why it's hard for me to say because he juiced a shit ton, not just a little. I hear you. I'm not even going to dispute that. Millennium Crisis. DeBronx can box. He can submit any lightweight in any position he wants. I agree. Alpha Tips, can you rate Charles Oliveira's chance to win out of 100 in your analysis? For me, I think this fight is 60-40, right? I'd say Ilya Tuporia has a 60% chance of winning, and I'd say Charles Oliveira has a 40% chance of winning. I say this because Charles Oliveira gets caught too many times in his fights, and that's one of the reasons why I didn't pick him. His striking defense has not historically been great, and that's essentially why I was like, you know what, I'm going to go with Ilya Tuporia. However, it took Islam Makhachev 2 rounds to actually finish Charles Oliveira, to drop Charles Oliveira, right? Obviously, Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje are strikers, so that's why they were able to do it a little bit earlier. Islam Makhachev is a kickboxer, and I think he's been improving over an extended period of time. So, in all honesty, I genuinely feel like Charles Oliveira has hands, and I feel like he's very underestimated. So for me, it's 60-40, purely because of Charles Oliveira's horrible striking defense. If it wasn't for his striking defense, I'd say maybe 51-49, right? But because of the horrible striking defense, I don't know. And also, I say this because the only grappling that I've seen Ilia Tuporia do is outside the UFC. And inside the UFC, I've only ever seen it properly against Bryce Mitchell. And I mean, Bryce Mitchell was submitted by Gene Silva. So how good is Bryce Mitchell at this point? Because look at what even who's that guy? Gracie, Kron Gracie, yes. Kron Gracie, the butt scooter. Like, that guy had a bit of success taking down Bryce Mitchell, right? At some point, the Kron Gracie, like the butt scooter, was able to take down Bryce Mitchell. Um, Gene Silva was able to submit Bryce Mitchell. So, how impressive is the grappling that we saw against Bryce Mitchell for Ilia Tuporia? And in that fight, it looked like Ilia Tuporia was using more muscle than technique to take down Bryce Mitchell for me. At least for me, I saw a little bit of muscle as opposed to technique, right? Maybe I'm wrong. So I haven't seen enough, especially UFC level grappling from Ilia Tuporia, in order to be confident that he's going to out grapple Charles Oliveira. So I guess let's see, because he feels very confident that he could submit Islam Makhachev. So maybe he is good on the ground. I've seen his ground game outside the UFC, but I don't know if it's going to be on the same level as Charles Oliveira. So in all honesty, I think maybe even 60-40 is a bit disrespectful to Charles Oliveira. I'd say 55-45. I'd say Charles Oliveira has a 45% chance of winning and Ilia Topuria 55%. And I think it's largely because I don't know enough about Ilia Topuria's grappling. Even though I've seen it outside the UFC, a lot of people look exceptional outside the UFC. And once they come into the UFC, they start to crumble. Look at Petchy Mix, look at Michael Chandler, look at who else? There's a couple of people, Kaya Asakura. Okay, Kaya Asakura has fought only the champion, but still, a lot of people who are looking exceptional outside the UFC don't always look exceptional in the UFC, right? So I don't know. I'm still yet to see his grappling inside the UFC. His grappling outside the UFC looks pretty good, but I'd like to see it in the UFC because people like Ian Gary was grappling outside the UFC and he looked good outside the UFC. But when he was fighting Michael Venom Page, that grappling looked horrible, you know? So looking good outside the UFC for me doesn't mean as much. So I'd like to see Ilia Topuria perform or rather grapple inside the UFC, and then I can be like, oh, okay, that's good. And for me, that Bryce Mitchell grappling is not going to confirm it because if Jin Silva, who is predominantly a striker, and Cron Gracie, who doesn't even know how to take down I don't know what's susceptible to be taken down, who couldn't even take down a baby, I was able to take down Bryce Mitchell. So I don't know how good that win is, or rather that grappling, how good it was. So yeah, I think 45-55 in all honesty. Um, Dante Spada, oh my God, George Floyd, wow. Millennium Crisis lightweight division is a shark tank right now. Yeah, I agree. Gabi C, if Tuporia beats Charles, then beats Islam, he's goated. Alpha tips, I'm taking 20-25% of for Charles. Okay. Gabi C, Tuporia technique is flawless. You must be a fool if you think anybody gonna beat him. Only Islam can. Il- Ile Tuporia's technique is not flawless, my guy. It's not flawless. Did you watch the fight with Max Holloway? Up until he got the knockout, Max Holloway was beating him up, dude. Like go back and watch that fight. You can't say Ilia Tuporia's game is flawless, and then call other people fools for not agreeing with that. Ilia Tuporia's, but again, Ilia Tuporia's striking is technique is not flawless, dude. Like Max Holloway was beating him up. If Max Holloway didn't get caught, he was going to win that fight. Don't play like that, man. Go back and watch that fight. His technique is not flawless, dude. Millennium Crisis, bro. The fans won't be surprised if the Bronx beats El Matador. Okay. Dunk. Mike G. Mike GG. I hate Ilya, but he will beat Charles Oliveira. Yeah, no, I think he will. Sven Swanson, your boy Jones ran from Tom. I think he did, man. Alpha Tips, good point. We will see how 55 treats Tuporia. Yeah. Alpha Tips Tuporia. Yeah. Um, Mike GG. Ilya only one-dimensional fighter. He wants to move. But before fighting Paddy, he's shook. Malik GG, also Tuporia is a midget. Like, he's short, yeah. He's actually very short. Shorter than Raul Rosas Jr. even. Um, Gabi GC, you're hating on the go Tuporia. No, I'm just. If you look at my predictions, dude, like, go back and watch my breakdowns. Even the breakdowns tomorrow, when I break down fights, I don't favor anyone. Even if I'm picking you, I'm not gonna favor you. So if you listen to, for example, my breakdown for Ignacio Bahamondes versus Rafael Feziev, go back and watch my breakdown for that particular fight. I was very critical of Rafael Feziev. I was because that's how I break down fights. I am not going to favor the person I'm picking. I have to tell you what I'm concerned about as well. And as far as Ilya Tuporia, I don't think he has good technique, man. Look at what Max was doing to him. To be honest, like, look at what Max was doing to him. He was beating him up. I mean, and then Ilya Tuporia landed a good shot and put him out. Kudos to him, but that's not good technique. It just means you have power. I'm a fan of Francis Ngannou, but I'm not gonna sit here and say, well, Francis Ngannou is more technical than Cyril Gane. No, no, Francis Ngannou is not more technical than Cyril Gane. But do I think Francis Ngannou can knock out Cyril Gane? Yeah, 100. Right. So that's the difference. Like, for me, Ilya Tuporia just has power, right? Because he gets touched up a lot in his fights. Even in the Alexander Volkanovski fight, he was getting touched up. So that's not a sign of a good technique, in all honesty. Um, Malik G, Amasa Rukian versus Ilya Tuporia with Aman Sarukian versus Ilya. Aman wins all day. That all day. I'm leaning towards agreeing with you, my guy. So Sven Swanson, of course, he could take down Bryce. Do you not understand the level of jiu-jitsu he has? He may be a shit fighter, but he's world class. He's a world class grappler. No, my guy. There's a difference between jiu-jitsu and wrestling. Um, Kron Gracie is not a good wrestler. He's good at submitting people. He's good at rolling, but he's not good at wrestling. Right? There's a difference. He's not good at wrestling. Like, you can't sit here and tell me that Kron Gracie is good at wrestling. Like, remove the submissions. How many submissions do you think Kron Gracie can get, or rather, in his career, how many takedowns have he landed against good people, like people who can actually defend takedowns? He doesn't know how to wrestle. Yeah, he can. Like, he's world class when it comes to submissions, but he's not a good wrestler. Um, Malik Fiziev, yeah. Rene the Lord Kevin Holland has a 45-70 chance of coping and making excuses in his next L. Drizzy Gold, big card this week. Ilya KO Pantoja by sub. Okay, I could see that, my guy. I genuinely do think that Kai Kara France has a big shot at winning here. Gabi C, most interesting fight is Drinkers versus the Wolf. Yeah, that's the most. Like, that's the fight that I'm interested in more than anything else. Rene the Rizlot, I don't care if Ilya was getting touched up by probably some of the best technical strikers in the sport. The Charles doesn't stick and move, and he crashes in and trades in the pocket. Okay, okay. I mean, that's a solid point. I can't argue that. I can respect that. Um, yeah, that's a solid point. Obviously, Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski are really, really talented strikers. So that's a good point to make. So I'm not gonna argue with that. Sven Swanson, grappling is not on wrestling. Grappling is not on wrestling. Grappling is also jiu-jitsu. No, there's a difference between jiu-jitsu and wrestling, dude. Jiu-jitsu focuses on submissions. Wrestling focuses on control. So those are two different things. That's why there's a wrestling tournament and there's a jiu-jitsu tournament. The only form of grappling, when we say grappling, it involves different arts of fighting on the ground. So when we say grappling, it includes jiu-jitsu, it includes wrestling, it includes every other aspect of fighting on the ground. That's what grappling is. But when we talk specifically about what wrestling is, wrestling focuses on control, whereas jiu-jitsu focuses on submissions. Right. So for me personally, rather that's how I understand it. I remain to be correct, or I stand to be corrected. But someone like Sean Gracie will submit you if you try to roll on the floor with him. Like he will find a way to submit you, but he's not going to take you down. Like he doesn't. Like he's not good at that. A wrestler, on the other hand, can put you down. That's that's why you find people like Curtis Blades. Curtis Blades doesn't have a submission, but he's a good wrestler. Well, that's like he's able to take you to the ground and land some few things, but he's not very good at submitting people. That's why he doesn't have a submission in his career. So that's the difference. Curtis Blades won't submit you, but he can take you down. Whereas Cron Gracie can submit you, but he doesn't know how to take you down. That's the difference between wrestling and grappling. But again, wrestling and jiu-jitsu. I mean, anyone is open to actually disagree with me, but please disagree with points and reference. Don't just use opinion. Sven Swanson only. Okay. Renee the Lord Holloway and Vogue were both on the back foot, peppering Ilya. If Charles does this, I will be very surprised, as it would be very uncharacteristic of him. Okay, fair point. But like I said, I feel like Charles Oliveira has been improving. Maybe I'm wrong. And also even the grappling. Like I said, I haven't seen enough in the UFC to have enough confidence in Ilia Tuporia's grappling. I'm still picking Ilia Tuporia, right? But I there are some few things that I feel like Charles Oliveira might be able to exploit, but we'll see. Renee the Reslot, my main concern is that Charles will be huge compared to Ilya. Yeah, that's another factor, and that's another thing that I've been mentioning. The reach advantage will be massive for Charles Oliveira. Rene the Risla, Charles may also be slightly stronger and is very dangerous on the mat. Yeah, yeah. I mean, what do you call him? Aman Sarukian barely survived that guillotine. I don't know if Ilya Tuporia will be able to get out of that. I guess we'll see. Um, Rene the Rislord, we've seen Charles showcase great ability to get in and out, to get it down to the mat against Chandler, who is a muscle monster. I never would have thought in a million years Charles could just bully him around like that. I was also surprised. I expected, but what do you call him? I expected Michael Chandler to have the strength advantage. Rene the Rislord, there's different types of grappling. I agree. I 100% agree. Yeah. But scooters generally aren't good wrestlers. Guys, we've gotten even off topic for this stream. I'm going to be breaking down. If you're new to the channel, I break down every single fight on every single card. So I'm going to start tomorrow. So we'll talk about like the fights tomorrow. So in conclusion, shout out to Tom Aspinall. He's officially the undisputed heavyweight champion. However, I'm not excited for the fights that are coming. Who is he going to fight? The Cyril Gahn. Sure, the fight between him and Jelton Almeida is exciting, but have you seen Tom Aspinall? Aspinall is huge, 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 huge. So I don't know if it's going to, especially because Jelton Almeida struggled against Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis doesn't even have great grappling. Um, Rene the Rizlot, bro, see the community section. I posted the dude's comments. He's wild. I'll check them out. I'll check them out. Let me conclude the stream. So Jelton Almeida is small and he was struggling with Derek Lewis. Um, I mean, so I don't see him having any sort of success against what do you call him, Tom Aspinall. Almeida also struggled against the Curtis Blades, if I'm not mistaken. He lost to Curtis Blades. Am I wrong? I think he lost to Curtis Blades. So I mean, that's not a good sign. He's not gonna beat Tom Aspinall, but at the very least, that's the only exciting fight. Who else is it going to fight? That remind me who's in the top five, because the only person that comes to mind is Cyril Gahn. Is Alexander Volkov in the top five? Who's in the top five of the heavyweight division? Apart from Curtis Blades, I know it's number five. Cyril Gahn is somewhere in there. Is Alexander Volkov in there somewhere as well? Stipe Miocic is retired, so he can't be in the top five anymore. Who's in the top five actually? That's sad. I don't even know who's in the top five of the heavyweight division. I don't know, man. I guess Tom Aspinall should just knock out everyone and have as many defenses as he can and cement himself as the greatest. Because in the current state of the heavyweight division in the UFC, I genuinely don't feel like it's gonna be difficult to become the heavyweight gold for Tom Aspinall. All he has to do is just be active. Before anyone problematic comes, I see a couple of prospects at the bottom. People like Kennedy Nzechukwu maybe might be interesting if Nzechukwu finds a way to defend takedowns and um, tries to actually perform decently at the very least. So at the bottom of the division, I see a couple of interesting fights, but I don't know if they'll make it to the top, because in the heavyweight division, weight is also another element that people don't realize they have to game plan for, right? Sometimes it doesn't really matter how good you are. You might be fighting someone who has basic wrestling abilities and is heavy, so they can out wrestle you not because of technique, but because they are so much more heavier than you are. So I don't know, man. Shout out to Tom Aspinall though. Kudos to him. It sucks that he couldn't fight. I think Tom Aspinall's legacy, it sucks for him because at the very least, I feel like everyone should have the opportunity to fight a former champion. I don't think Tom Aspinall has a former champion on his resume, and I don't think he'll ever will, because all the former champions have retired. Right, Stipe Miocic is gone. Francis Ngannou, I don't know if the UFC will ever bring him back. John Jones is not gonna fight him until maybe Tom Aspinall maybe has like five title defenses. That's when he's going to be like, yeah, no, now it's time to actually fight Tom Aspinall. So I guess we'll see. Um, Gabby C. Nobody's beating Tom Aspinall. Okay. I'm inclined to agree with that. Gabby C. Aspinall belong in the old heavyweights, the Brock Lesnar's and Cain Velasquez. He belongs with them. I agree. I think there's very little competition for him in today's time. Shoshat McGee, welcome to the stream, my guy. UFC is so bad. Last three cards has seen so slow and no finishes. Yeah, it's the matchmaking as well. I don't know what's happening. Maybe they are saving them for for next year's cards, or when they start their deals, their new deals. Maybe I think Alonso Ochoa, Sergey is in the top five. Okay, I forgot the Sergey Pavlovich. Okay, but Sergey Pavlovich, I mean, got knocked out by Tom Aspinall. But at the very least, that's the only fight whereby I was nervous, right? But even though I picked Tom Aspinall on short notice, at least that fight made me nervous. But after seeing what Alexander Volkov was able to do to Sergey Pavlovich, by the way, I also picked Alexander Volkov to beat Sergey Pavlovich. Um, After what I saw what Aspinall did to him and what Alexander Volkov did to him, I mean, I'm not as interested to see that fight again. Um, Shoshat McGee, WMMA outperformed a lot of fights last night. It's sad, but yeah, that's actually true. Um, told you, told you, John was a gay duck. Yeah, no, you told me, man. You actually told me. I'm not even going to dispute that. Gabby C. Pereira weighing in at the 243 now. Okay, I mean that's an interesting fight. I would like to see that. Um, Joshua McGee called it 6 months ago. Nah, man, like you did. You've been telling me, and I've been like, nah, he's not gonna retire. But I don't think he's retired. I think he's waiting for fights like Alex Pereira. I think that's what he's looking for. He's looking for fights with Alex Pereira, with what do you call him, Francis Ngannou. I think those are the two fights that he's probably interested in at this point. Um, I really wanna see the Ang and Poatan too. Yeah, me too. But in all honesty, I could see John Jones asking for that fight, even though what do you call him? Pereira lost. I don't want him to move up till he gets his win back. Hopefully, nah, he's not gonna beat Ank alive at this point. Um, Shoshat McGee, Volkov and Sergey is all that's left for Tom at heavyweight. It's dead, which is kind of sad, man. That's why I'm saying the state of the heavyweight division is honestly sad for Tom Aspinall because it doesn't allow him to be great. Even if he gets like 7 or 10 defenses, it'll always be like, yeah, but against who, you know? So hopefully contenders keep on improving and they keep on coming up, and hopefully he gets to build like a really good resume for himself. Um, Rene Lord, you gotta make a live stream about the topic of has the UFC fallen off recently? No, I will, man. I will. I actually should have done that today. But maybe I'll do it next Saturday. On the day of UFC 317. Um, but that's not the perfect time to be trashing UFC because everyone will be excited for Ile Tuporia. Maybe I'll do it Friday. Yeah, instead of doing the replying to comments because obviously still I'm going to be replying to your comments. Um, I'll I'll do that stream hopefully next week Friday. What about Derek Lewis? I mean, Derek Lewis was out wrestled by Jilton Almeida. I mean, Derek Lewis is not gonna do anything to Tom Aspinall. Shoshat McGee, people are making their debut as a plus 700 and knocking off UFC prospects. We have a problem. Yeah, a serious one, my guy. A serious one. Joe LaGrue, give DC juice and throw him in there. That's not a bad idea, man. That is Lord. UFC is cursed. I mean, I feel like Dana White is trying to be in charge of too many things. Like it's okay to say, okay, you be my like have an assistant at the very least because he's trying to be in boxing, in grappling, in slap, in MMA. Like you can't, dog. Like you can't do everything and excel at it at the same time. That's why the product is suffering because there's no one who's giving it his undivided attention. So if he wants to, I don't know what Dana White is UFC president, right? So then they should get like a deputy president who's going to be running the UFC in Dana's absence and maybe run through a couple of things with Dana. At the very least, have someone who's present, right? Clearly, Dana White doesn't want to let go of the power, but at the very least, have a deputy president who's going to be in charge of making sure that the UFC thrives. I feel like Dana White is focused on his other escapades and honestly doesn't give a crap about the UFC anymore. It's on autopilot. He knows we have fans, we have content creators who are going to promote fights for us. So we don't really need to do much. Like he's on autopilot, especially because there are no other promotions actually threatening him. So he doesn't have to do anything. Like the content creators are going to cover the UFC because that's the biggest promotion. It makes sense. Unless you go to boxing, which I hate boxing, so I'm never go. Okay, Not me personally, I'm not gonna cover it. I'll hire someone on the channel to cover boxing, right? I don't like boxing. I don't want to lie to you. It always frustrates me that people can't be taken down in that sport. So if ever boxing comes to the channel, someone else has to cover it. That's why you've never seen me doing breakdowns for boxing. I've tried. I'm not interested in boxing. So for me personally, I feel like there should be a deputy president who's going to focus on the growth of the UFC instead of this nonsense that's happening, man. I feel like Dana White is just wants to be remembered as this legendary guy who was able to dominate every sport. And I mean, you can still do that, dude, but hire people who are going to give each product a little bit more attention, because him alone clearly it's not working, because the UFC is suffering at this point. But that's, I guess that's why the that particular topic is required. We'll talk about it next week Friday. Let me not ramble on about it now. I'm flipping coins for picks this next week's card. Shout out Mickey. UFC just hands out contracts like Oprah. Leandro Speedback got robbed. I can't remember when did he fight. Acosta is they hire. Shout out McGee. Who is Waldo making a title run? Waldo's gonna get knocked out by Tom Aspinall. But feed him to him. I mean, it's a title defense at the end of the day. Shot McGee. If Waldo makes it to the top five at heavyweight, I'll quit watching. I mean, every other division is pretty decent except heavyweight. Heavyweight is trash right now. Joe Legrew, Dana is just a face. The matchmakers do most of the work. The problem is so many Dana vendettas or bias get in the way of big fights. But he's the president, so it means the day-to-day operations of the company still rest with him. So the promotion of the fights, the acquisition of new talent, even if he has to delegate, even if he delegates a lot of the work, the day-to-day operations of the UFC go through Dana White. So e- even the matchmakers, I don't think the matchmakers make their decisions on their own. I'm sure they have to consult with Dana White. So that's why I'm saying I feel like because of that, it's influencing how the success of the promotion. That's why the promotion is on autopilot. It needs someone who's fully who's giving it their full attention, so that they can make certain decisions that are going to be better for the sport or for the company and grow it. Because at this point, Dana White is using the method of why change it if it's not broken, right? So I get what you're saying, but that's the problem, right? Everything still has to run through him, even though he's not doing the job himself. But the delegation. So, for example, I'm trying to build even this channel. Um, for example, if I'm running this channel, and which is something I plan on doing eventually. I'm also running a clothing channel. I'm running a law firm. I'm running this. Eventually, it'll become too much, and then I have to create. I have to then focus on what I want to do in on the channel. So I'll hire someone who's going to be doing the editing, who's going to be doing the research, and all these other things, just to give me enough time to focus on what I want to do, and at the same time still have a bit of input. And if I get to a point where I feel like, okay, this is too much, I then get someone who's going to focus on actually building or taking this platform and every other platform I will have created to the next level, which is what I think Dana White should be doing. There's a point that you get to and you want to explore different things, and which is cool. And I love the fact that he still loves the UFC and he wants to be a part of it. And there's nothing wrong with that, but he's not giving it his full attention, because what's the purpose of a CEO, right? The purpose of a CEO, there's a difference between a CEO and a director. A director is not involved in the day-to-day operations of a company, right? They are basically there to make major decisions, right? They are not there to operate like the to make decisions on the day to day. which basically the president, from what my understanding, the president has the same function as the CEO, right? So if Dana White is the CEO of a company, so let's say for example the CEO of McDonald's, right, is out there trying to start KFC, and at the same time helping KFC grow, and at the same time helping which other Burger King grow. Like, do you think he's going to be doing like an exceptional job as a CEO? Because the CEO is supposed to be hands on a day-to-day basis. Do you think that the CEO of McDonald's is going to be as good running McDonald's but simultaneously running KFC and the Burger King and another? It's not gonna work, because then he's becoming like a director. He's not functioning as a CEO. Like what Dana White is doing now, he's slowly functioning as a director as opposed to the CEO that he's supposed to be, or the president, whatever he calls himself. So for me personally, I disagree with that. I feel like the things that he's doing are putting him in a position of a director, but he doesn't want to be a director. He wants to be a day-to-day, like the day-to-day operations of the company to run through him, but he's not giving it attention, right? Because the directors, even though directors are responsible for making major decisions, they also rely on the CEO to tell them, "Oh, okay, you are the one who's involved in the day-to-day operations of this particular company. So what do you think will work? What's the problem? What's this? What's..." So they have to consult with the president or the CEO to tell them, "Oh, okay, is this going to work? Is this not going to work? Based on your experience of the day-to-day operations of the company, is this going to work?" But Dana White cannot advise on that because I don't feel like he is as involved in the company as he used to be. So I feel like he needs to get like at least a deputy president who's going to at the very least be there and have the enough power to make decisions, and then maybe Dana White can absorb some of the information from the deputy. But that's not gonna happen. I mean, that's going to be sharing power. I'm rambling too much, man. I need to be bouncing. I'm Short McGee. UFC 185 205 heavyweight is there. I mean no, 185 I disagree. 185 has Hamza Chimaev, what do you call him? Fluffy Hernandez. It has even though I don't rate Kyle Bahao that much, it has Kyle. It has Nassourdine Mavov. I think middleweight is pretty decent. I would agree with that at light heavyweight. But I mean, Carlos Ulberg is there. Who else? Yuri Prohaska. Magomed Ankalaev obviously is the champion. Alex Pereira. I mean, light heavyweight is not as decent as middleweight in my opinion, but at least there's still a bit of life. But definitely heavyweight. I mean, heavyweight, there's nothing there to be honest. Renee Dereslot, MMA guru for UFC president. I think I'd run that business a lot better than MMA guru. I think MMA guru is too biased to be running a company like that. I think the decisions that he'll make will be too biased. I feel like I'm very in between. That's why I don't censor anyone. But even he doesn't censor anyone. But even in his opinion, he clearly doesn't like Muslims, right? And he's made it clear, like he's very biased towards a specific group of people, and I don't think it's going to be good for the company, to have someone like that running a company. You need to be able to work with everyone, right? But yeah, I mean, I love the passion though. Um, Reagan Hill, oh my God, John Jones, what's happening? Shot McGee. Oh, is 170 and down getting all the finishes? Oh, you're talking about finishes. I get you. Alonzo Ochoa. Once upon a slugfest versus Aspinall is our only hope. You want Aspinall to murder me, dude? Shot McGee. Bring back a 5K contract. Let's get some third world warriors in there. Shoshat McGee, they will die for 50K bonus. Shoshat McGee, Palestine about to take over the 125 division for sanctuary bonuses. Wow. John Out Mendoza, keep talking, Unc. I'm almost there. That's sick, man. Shoshat McGee, out of the top five at 185, there is no up and coming threats. Um, yeah, no, that's true. I wanted to disagree, but that's actually true. Joshua McGee, all he says is Muslims don't fight each other, so it's hard to match make them, and then they don't take short notice fights. But no, that's not it. Like, if you've heard how he speaks about, for example, he doesn't understand how to run a business properly. I get some of his arguments, like him arguing about Saudi Arabia getting major fights. He's not taking into consideration that Saudi Arabia is paying the UFC like 20 million, and maybe he doesn't like that about the sport. But ultimately, you have to take into consideration that it's not Saudi Arabia's fault that they force. It's like saying if the UFC goes to Netflix and they force them to have good cards, then all of a sudden, yeah, they are only doing it for Netflix. It doesn't work that way. It comes down to why isn't ESPN forcing the UFC to give them good cards? That's the question we should be asking. Because the same thing that Saudi Arabia is doing, when they pay the UFC money, they expect quality cards. The ESPN is not demanding that from the UFC for whatever reason. ESPN is allowing UFC to give them trashy cards. So it's not necessarily anyone's fault. So even Netflix, if UFC goes to Netflix and they give us trashy cards, I mean, it's not the UFC's fault. In all honesty, it's Netflix's fault for allowing the UFC to give them trashy cards. So I feel like he's directing the his anger at the wrong people, because ultimately, if I pay for something and I have the right to demand certain things, right? Because I paid for it. It's not like you're giving it to me for free. When cards go to Saudi Arabia, it's not like they're going there for free. They're paying UFC probably like 20 million, 30 million. So Riyadh season, I'm 100% sure that they helped UFC with UFC Noche at the Dome or at the whatever they call it, um, at the Sphere, right? Because the UFC was running at a loss. They wouldn't have done that without Riyadh season. So those kind of favors, they don't come free. Like, oh, you want help with a couple of millions to make the Sphere happen? Okay, fine, but you're going to owe me a couple of UFC cards. That's how it works. So it's not like so for some reason the UFC, like Saudi Arabia, is doing all this. Just that they know to demand quality, and it's not like UFC is incapable of making quality cards of on every single card. Like have a quality main event, a co-main event, and maybe insert up and coming talent in the main card. Maybe mix up maybe two or three ranked fighters or contenders. Throughout the year, it works out, but the UFC is not doing that. For whatever reason, they prefer to do things however they're doing them. There are fighters on the roster who are not fighting like. So yeah, I feel like he's not very impartial. He's very biased. So I don't know if I would be happy if he was running the UFC. Um, Joshua McGee, I don't think he would be good to run, but it, to run it. But I don't think he is out to get Muslims. He wanted Big Ang to win. I mean, he did, but he actually didn't care initially, right? He was okay. He was okay with Bilal being skipped over for Kobe Covington. He was okay with Uncle Live being skipped over for like he's okay with a lot of. That's why I'm like, look, go look at. I watch his content, right? I'm not gonna sit there and lie. I watch his content, not all of it, but I watch a lot of his content. So I've seen some of that, like the bias that he has. Um, for me personally, I don't feel like he's going to actually effectively run the company. And apart from the bias, as far as specifically the Muslim, the running of a company, like a company has to make money. I don't think he understands that. So he's going to be making decisions that are only good for a specific reason, but ignoring the fact that the company ultimately has to continue to exist for the next 20, 30 years, right? So that's another thing to take into take into consideration. When you run a company, you're not just making sure, like, it's like me saying I have a clothing brand, I'm going to focus on making sure that I put everything into making this my clothing brand great, and then I'm not going to sell it too expensively. Like, maybe the quality of my product is extremely high, but I'm going to charge very little. Like, ultimately, it's a noble thing, but how am I going to then make money to pay my employees to buy trucks to deliver that? So I don't think he also, like, his, maybe he would be good at matchmaking, but even then, I'm not sure if it's going to work out. But maybe he might be good at matchmaking. But as far as running the company itself, I don't know, man. It requires a certain level of knowledge and skill. I don't feel like he has. Matchmaking, maybe, but even then, I feel like his decisions would be a lot more biased than what's currently happening. Shoshat McGee and wanted Islam to be the Charles. I don't think I was watching his channel at that point, but he's expressed, my dude. Shoshat McGee, be honest, he has expressed multiple times. Like, for example, when Umar lost, right? He expressed it. He did it. He wasn't even shy about it. He was like, "Yeah, we're winning the fight. We're going to eradicate all these people from the sport and everything like that." It's not like it's a secret that he doesn't like them, right? So like, are you saying he wasn't celebrating when Umar Nurmagomedov lost? He was, dog. He was. Are you saying he wasn't celebrating when Ikram Aliskerov lost to Robert Whittaker? He was. I mean, that it is what it is, though. Kadir, say, okay, I'm not gonna say that. Shoshat Megi, I agree that we would have at least 8 ranked fighters on pay-per-view. And I agree, man. Shoshat Megi, I like the stacked Middle East card, so the fight time is early. Yeah, I'm also looking forward to that one. I'm Shoshat McGee. I'm watching it on TV, no matter where it is. Weather report. Who you got, Ilya or Charles? I'm going with Ilya, but I'm a little bit worried about Charles. Shoshat McGee. We will KO Charles round one. Reese, that was for you. Guys, I've streamed longer than I anticipated. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I love and appreciate all of you. Until then, deuces.